Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Pool Box Pals podcast. I am one of your pals. My name is Monk, and with me is one of my beloved pals, Mark. How you doing,
Yeah,
Mark?
Mark's doing good. Mark's also known as Mark, everybody's best pal.
Is that what it is? Mark's
That, that's
everybody's.
what that's what that's what everybody's saying.
Is that the hot word on the street?
It's the hot word on the street about the pull box pals. Is that
Is
Mark's
everybody?
everybody's best pal.
Well,
But
if you're everybody's
so
best
are
pal,
you.
who am I? Oh, okay.
Oh,
Well,
you're the
there you go.
favorite. You're the
Oh,
favorite.
maybe that should be our tagline. It should be like, "Hey, everybody, welcome to Pool Box Pals, where you talk comic book with everybody's favorite pals, Mark and Monk." Something like that. Let's
I like
workshop
that.
this.
Let's
Yeah,
do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think either of us will remember that for next week?
No.
Well, write it down in the notes
Oh,
and see what happens.
uh, I actually did bring a notepad.
You have a notepad?
Well,
My
yeah, I
goodness.
I kind of figure like something I want to work on, just so everybody knows, and I would love to be called out on it for anybody that's watching. Um, I have a habit of like interjecting, and so
It
instead
happens.
of interjecting, I'm gonna write a note, and then once you're done talking, I'll be like, "Oh, I wrote the note. I'll come back to
Nice.
it." Yeah.
Well,
So
hey man, you get excited. It's understandable. Things
I
are
do. I get.
happening in the world. You love comic books. Don't you love
I
comic
get. I
books?
get. I love a lot of things, but yeah, I love comic books.
So, have you been? We didn't talk. I'm just going to jump over you loving a lot of things and go into something that I'm going to assume you love, which would be Moon Knight. Have you been watching Moon Knight?
Love it.
Do you? I knew
I
it.
do. Yeah, I mean this I more just love it because I really I don't know what's going on. I like can't make
Mm,
sense of the show, and I know that that's kind of probably like the intent. Cuz yeah, like we've talked about in recent weeks, I've been trying to catch up on Moon Knight comics, found out our boy Jeff wrote one that's pretty key to the series. I read through that. It was phenomenal. And so there's all these different like, clues and hints from like all the comics that came before the show, but still at the same time, like episode 5 just came out, the finale is next week. What's going on? And I
yeah, I
love
mean
the
that's a
intent. I love the intensity of what's going on.
right because you can see that there's like spirits coming in. It's just like, well, that kind of means that like I think next week's episode is going to kind of pick up like as spoiler alert for episode 4 of Moon Knight, where, well, I won't spoil it, but the predicament that Mark finds him in, finds himself in at the end of episode 4, I think it'll pick up right from there.
Oh, so you haven't watched the latest one?
No, I have. No,
Oh,
I
you
have.
have.
I mean, episode 6 is going to pick up from that perspective.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's going to be Lila, I believe is the
yeah.
girl's name. She's gonna probably doing something to free Kanchu, maybe something.
Yeah,
I don't
well,
know.
and she's the curveball of the show because she doesn't have any comic history, as far as I
Right.
know. Because
Well,
the
do you think that she just brought her in because they needed like a love interest? I hope not, because she seems like more of a character than that.
she seems like she has more purpose, kind of like the Carter, the niece Carter,
Oh,
the
Sharon Carter.
Sharon Carter. There we go.
Don't get me going on Sharon
I
Carter.
like I just more mean like kind of like that type of role where they have a purpose. Also like Agent Hill, in the movies, just like they're not necessarily like the star. They're definitely like a secondary supportive role. Um, but like I think that that's kind of like where she might be going in the direction. She's been one of my favorite things to watch in the show,
Yeah,
just
she's
because
been.
she is just like she's new. So,
Yeah,
but
she's
but
very
so is the take
enjoyable.
on Stephen Grant is a new take too.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. Not just the idea of starting the show from his perspective. I thought was really interesting.
Oh yeah,
Um, Yeah, but I'm enjoying it. I like, yeah, like you said, I don't really know what's going on. I'm they almost have to do more Moon Knight because this just seems such like a small contained story that if they don't do
Yeah.
more Moon Knight, it's just kind of like, well, that was a fun thing that happened so adjacent to like everything else, but maybe that's fine. Like maybe we don't need, but I really enjoy Oscar Isaac as
Yeah.
all these characters.
He
Hopefully we see a
deserves
third
an
one.
award.
Yeah, but he's not going to get one.
I
That's the
know.
problem. You're absolutely right. Hopefully he gets some like indie award or something like that. But
But
like,
it's also, I thought the guy that did oh man, what was the sequel to M Night Shyamalan's
um,
Unbreakable
Glass Split.
Split?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know why I'm blanking on his name.
James
James
McAvoy.
McAvoy,
Yeah.
um, McAvoy,
McAvoy.
McAvoy. His portrayal of somebody with split personalities, like, I mean, if you can play more than one role in a movie
Yeah.
and
I mean,
do it convincingly,
and to be
it,
able to like have a good transformation between the personalities and not just be like
oh
blah,
yeah,
blah, blah, and then just become something else. But
yeah.
speaking of going between things, um, are you excited to see Doctor Strange in the multiverse of multiverses madness? It's
I'm
insanity time.
I'm trying to contain my excitement about Doctor Strange. I've been playing it off like, oh, great, another Marvel movie's coming out.
Yeah.
What's new? But I know that I'm gonna get there, and I'm not gonna shut up about it. And I'm probably gonna do a shoot from the hip response, like right as I get out of theater on like Instagram or something. It's like, this is the
Yeah.
best Marvel movie ever. That's
Yeah.
what I did with Spider-Man. So I
You
walked
had it
down like,
lined up
I
before you even
seriously,
left.
yeah, I was like, I seriously think this is the best Marvel movie ever. Which I would still make the argument that the latest Spider-Man might be the best Marvel movie ever.
Let's not go down that road.
We can go down it if we want to, but if you don't want to right now,
No,
that's
I
fine.
don't want to because I feel like it'll end up in a spirited discussion about about it. It I don't want to go into it. It was a very enjoyable movie. I think the writing was bad. I I need to watch it again, but everything it seemed like a lot of the whole movie was like, listen, we're giving you what you want, so you're gonna excuse the fact that Ned does magic out of nowhere, like just all like
Oh yeah,
it,
no,
just a lot of
no movie comes without its issues,
no,
and
sure, and but
that is particularly one of them for me. I'm just like, cool.
yeah, it's like you couldn't. Well, I heard somewhere that was supposed to go to like American Chavez, which would have made so much more sense. And I don't know why
Yeah,
they didn't do that because now they have to introduce them in Multiverse of Madness.
yeah,
Multiverse of Madness is only 2 hours long. I keep
I
bringing
know.
that up to people because I'm like, I don't. I think they reshot the whole thing. I'm like, I really wouldn't be surprised if they shot 70% or more because they went back for reshoots not too long ago. All the trailers came out super late. Like
Yeah,
a lot of it's just CGI mucking about. So like, I don't know. But I am excited.
yeah,
But I was telling Mark offline that I'm actually not going to get to see it for a couple of weeks. I had tickets. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to sell those for some. It's on Mother's Day, so I have Mother's Day's planned that I forgot about. Sorry, Mom. But yeah. Uh, so I'm not going to see it for a bit because the next week I'm going on tour, and we're not going to be there. So it's going to be something.
yeah,
There's no way this movie doesn't get spoiled for me, but I hope it doesn't. But
yeah.
I I it's like literally I literally can't go on Instagram or Twitter for 3 weeks, and I'm going to be on there just promoting stuff for my band. So there's just like no
As
way
long
that
as you have that intense and you're like, you take that mindset of like, I'm only gonna like produce content rather than consume, I think you'll be
yeah.
okay.
I'm not too worried about it. I can hear you clicking your pen, buddy. Um,
Sorry, it's a habit.
it
Let
is
me
a
set
habit.
it down. I'll keep it clicked out and I will.
There you go. Just have your just raise your just be flicking your thumb. I hold
Yep.
my vape. That's my fidget spinners. I sit down here and just I spin it like this. But now you just picked up a soda can. Now you're just like then I hear you just picking at that.
I'm
Anyways, buddy, we weren't here last week. But you didn't
yeah.
get any pulls that there was nothing in your shop, nothing really came
Yeah.
out.
Well, it's
I mean,
just
there was some
yeah,
cool stuff that came out.
there was some really cool stuff that came out, and it like I went to my shop anyway. I looked on the shelves, all the stuff that I would have wanted to get, my shop didn't get in, and it just seems like my shop didn't get a whole lot in that day.
Mm,
And then, yeah, nothing that I'm subscribed to currently had an issue come out that day, and there was nothing that I wanted to subscribe to that day because most of the stuff that came out as number ones were just one
mm,
shots. Um, and I think one shots they're cool, but like they always have like either a history attached to them that's good to know,
mm-hmm.
um, and then they obviously are going to project something forward. So if you're not subscribed to a series that a one shot has something to do with, then
Yeah. But do you do one shots of like indie stuff? Because one of the comics I'm going to be talking about
yeah,
today is an indie one shot.
yeah,
I love the one shot. I understand what you're saying about like Daredevil one shot or
yeah,
something like that of just being like you're absolutely right. Like you
yeah.
have
Well,
to. It's
I guess there's two kinds of one shots
right.
because there's one shots within like the realm of like ongoing series that have date back to decade or more. So this is clearly, yes, Marvel and DC. Even Image has stuff where they do one shots that pertain to something they've had ongoing for a while. But then there's also these one shots that are just true one shots, just like a one off story that can be
Hmm.
done in like 32 or more pages.
Or 64 or whatever.
Yeah.
I really love them. I think I we've talked about this almost every episode. Just the idea of I think a lot of things are made to just sell trade paperbacks, and I think I just want like something that yeah, it's
They
just a
are.
good story. But anyways,
And
we're getting
that's
into
gonna
this
that's gonna come up again
oh,
when I get to one of the things that I talk about.
nice. Well, speaking of things you want to talk about, you want to share with everybody your pools from this week, correct?
Yeah, this week. So I had 9 on my list on my comic leagues, but two of them didn't come in for me. I don't know if I was just too late letting my shop know that I needed it, but for people who are wondering, it's always safe to try to keep 2 months advance on comics if you're wanting to have it ready for you at the comic shop or even just at your comic shop. So,
Yeah.
because otherwise they put it on back order, and especially most comic shops, I think, go through previews, which I found out they will take forever with back orders.
Hmm.
Like, yeah. So yeah. Anyways, we can talk about that more later. Let's get into what I got this week.
Let's see it.
All right, so I got issue 4 of Bylines in Blood. This I'm not sure yet because previews and comic leagues doesn't have anything beyond this yet. But I'm really enjoying this series. The writers of it, it is a crime story that has to do with journalism and how journalism's dead. And the main character is just like this female. She quit being a journalist. She became a private detective. Her mentor from her journalism days was murdered, and it just kind of has been growing from there. And she's just kind of getting mixed up in all this like underworld stuff, and also just kind of like elitist, like political stuff. So I'm pretty excited to read that one. The next one I got is Berserker, issue 8. Um, this is the second to last issue for this one. I
Okay,
think I
yeah, I was gonna
might.
say, is that wrapping up soon?
Yeah, it's 9 issues in total. So finale is next, and so I might actually save that until I get issue 9 as well.
Yeah.
Uh, I also surprisingly, I had we have demons too. I didn't want to keep pulling that one, but I didn't get that message to them in time, I guess. So
Don't you love that?
sometimes it
That's
works. Yeah, but I always take it regardless. It's like, oh, you threw this thing in extra. Like, sure, I'll read it.
yeah.
But
I feel bad like dropping it off onto the like putting it back on the shelves, but like they're fine with it because then that's just like somebody else will buy it. But like
yeah,
um there's
especially
definitely
when
been
it's like
times,
indie.
yeah. There's
Yeah,
definitely been times where I leave with like a comic that I didn't want because uh it was like in my pool box, like the exact same situation of just like didn't tell anybody and now it's sitting there. But
yeah,
I'm getting better at it. I'm getting less shy of being like I didn't enjoy this and just stopped.
yeah. I'm
Yeah,
getting there too, but it's also We Have Demons is okay, so it's see Dark Horse
Dark Horse.
there, but then look on the back here.
Okay. Comicsology original. Interesting.
Yeah. So if you have Comixology, you get it. You get it
Okay.
for you have a free digital subscription to it. And so when I
Oh,
also had realized that
that's
after
pretty
issue
cool.
1, that's when I was like, oh, I don't want to keep getting this. But then it came, and the cover was pretty cool, so I kept it.
Yeah. Nice.
Let's see.
What else
I
you
got a
got?
long list.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop interrupting you.
This side. Let's go here. This is the last Ronin. This is the finale. I'm pretty excited about this. Ninja Turtles. There's only I don't know if I've talked about this one before. Um,
No.
so I love the Ninja Turtles. Grew up on them. I was a kid when the original cartoon was like the most popular thing, and this is just a story about kind of the last days. 3 of the turtles are dead. Splinter's dead. Shredder's dead. It's more of a battle between Splinter and Shredder's families, but there's one turtle remaining who is trying to seek vengeance. And it's been a really, really fun story. So I'm excited to get into that one and
I'm definitely gonna
build.
pick up the trade paperback for that because
Yeah,
I wanted to pick on, but it seemed like it came out like really sporadically. Like this has come out like over a year, right? And that's issue
it
5.
I think it was every other month
Yeah.
releses. So I
Okay.
think the first
Then that would
one
make
was
sense.
in late 2021 is when it started releasing, I believe. Um,
Okay.
and yeah, and I after I got the third one off the shelf, um, and then I ordered the first two, and that's how I got into it. So this is actually the first one that actually showed up in my pull box.
Nice. Nice. Gotta love it.
All right. This next one I'm pretty excited about. I believe you got it too. It is Bloodstained Teeth.
I wasn't able to get it. It was out of my
Oh, you
shop.
didn't get it? Oh
Yeah.
man,
Oh no, you sound so sad.
I am because I was pretty pulled towards this one for a couple reasons.
One
Okay,
for the
so
obvious.
one for the obvious that it's like just a vampire story, but the tagline for it is that like the main character lives in a world where blood isn't the only thing vampires crave. So
Huh.
it gives that premise and it makes it exciting because it's like, well, what else would they crave? But I've talked about Charlie Houston's
Heroin.
Joe Joe Pitt case books and just the excitement level that there was with all these different clans and tribes in New York City of vampires and having all this kind of like more of a mafia kind of feel to it. And kind of what I'm hoping for out of this. But also the writer Christian Ward, I kind of dug into him. He's mainly a variant cover artist, is from what I can tell. At least the things that I've read of his, he just did a variant cover for, and both things were written by Jeff. It was
Okay.
Primordial number
The
1
name
and
sounds familiar.
Silver Coin. Yeah, and he did
Nice.
Silver Coin
Oh,
number 4, and he's also worked with Jeff on Black Bolt. So he has a history, and we do love talking about, or at least I do. I love how much Jeff picks good artists,
hmm.
and this guy's art is just. I don't know if he actually did the art for the pages, but that cover is amazing. And if you go back and look at his variant covers for those 2 issues of Primordial 1 and Silver Coin 4, they're brilliant. Like just absolutely wonderful.
Nice.
Then we got Star Wars Crimson Reign number 4. This one has to do with the Knights of Ren. There's one more issue after this, so I probably won't talk about Crimson Reign until it finishes up next month. And then this is a big one. This is Thor. This is the 750th issue.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it's a star-studded celebration of the 750th issue. Let me hold that up again. Um, they don't even have all of the names listed up top, but Donny Cates, that's who is currently running Thor right now as a writer.
hmm.
There's 7 writers that went into this issue. It was a big one. It was an
Yeah.
$8.99 comic, and so there's 7 writers. You got Jason Aaron, who has a history with Thor. He did the Mighty Thor series with Jane Foster. He did the Unworthy Thor series, which we see God the Butcher. So pretty much the guy who's influencing Thor: Love and Thunder in the comics. He's involved with it. Tom DeFalco, who worked on like the original runs of 1966 through 1996 of Thor. You got Al Ewing, who's like kind of the guy who has worked most closely with Loki. He did Loki, Agent of Asgard. You got J. Michael Starczynski. This guy's a legend. He helmed the Thor series between 2007 and 2011. And you got Walt Simonson, who's also a legend. He's worked on a lot of Thor series for many, many years. And then Dan Jurgens, he also helmed Thor for about 6 years between like at the turn of the millennium. So you got a good cast of people who are familiar with the character building this
Yeah.
issue. And it's
How many
the
pages
title
is it?
well, it's called Funeral for an All-Father because I think I don't know if I mentioned the spoiler of the last issue, but
I'm assuming Odin dies.
Yes.
Yeah, well, there we go. Spoiler.
It's 72 pages.
Woo!
So it's gonna be it's a long one. And then last but not least, this one's been on my list for like weeks in a row, but it keeps getting pushed to the next week. And I believe you also got it because, yeah.
Yep.
So
awesome.
it took a very long time for that one to show up, but I'm excited to.
This is another one that I feel like has been taken forever to come out, but it's so worth it. I'm sure we'll discuss it at some point in time. But
being students of religion, like all this has to do with like religion and lore of the Viking Age, and it's pretty fun.
It is a lot of fun. We can just both say that we would recommend that. Jump on that. It'll be a nice treat whenever it pops up in your pull box.
Oh yeah, and it's Black Caravan. So if anybody's wondering, which is like a sub of Scout Comics.
Speaking of Black Caravan, Mark, a couple of weeks ago, I went comic book shopping, I bought a comic from Black Caravan.
Okay.
It is canceled.
Oh,
it's a spooky looking title.
Yeah.
It's all black and white on the inside. Besides,
interesting.
Oh, yeah, it's all black and white, and so that I was really excited about. I was kind of nervous that it would be very gory and whatever, just because of the cover, but it's not. So I'm not a fan of like just like the Red Room. Do you know the Red Room comics? Those are like hyper gore. I'm not a fan of those. I really like the art style, but not the substance of the content rather.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that came out. I also got Slumber #2. Pull that back. I reviewed Slumber on the podcast a while ago, #1. It's about this girl right here. She is I would just say that like a dream hunter or something like that. She essentially, if you have a creature or something like that that shows up in your dreams, you can go to her and hire her, and then she puts you into like an inception machine, goes into your dreams, and then kills the monster. And there's a serial killer. It's a phenomenal premise. And there is somebody within the dream world that is possessing people and using them to kill people. And she's essentially calling out the dream hunter woman or whatever. So yeah, it's from Image. It's fantastic. The art is really good. The art is more cartoony than it is real, but yeah, it's very good. She obviously has times where the dream worlds start to bleed into the real world, and just kind of seeing that fun, wacky stuff. And I got another one from last week. It is last week, for those of you who don't know, was 420, which is a huge. It is the only holiday outside of 710. Do you know 710 is also a weed holiday?
I didn't know that. No.
It is, because it is oil spelled upside down. If you flip 710, it spells oil. Stoners are a crafty bunch.
They sure are.
Sure are. But I picked up The Secret History of the War on Weed. It was a one-shot from Image Comics, and I will be talking about this later because, yeah, it was very enjoyable. I don't want to give away anything right now, but we'll be getting into it. And that was the last for that week. And dude, I also had like a huge pull from this week. And what's crazy is that you and I don't even have like that much. We got like one or two that are the same. I don't even think two. I think we just got one, maybe.
Yeah, because I was supposed to get at least one of the ones that you got. I was supposed to get, and I
I
didn't.
think you were supposed to get two of the
Oh yeah,
twos that I
no,
got.
that's right. Yeah,
Um, but yeah, so I'll just start off with, obviously I got We Don't Kill Spiders number 4. We just kind of
yeah.
talked about that, so don't need to go into that much more. Smack my mic. Sorry about that, everybody. The next one is Godzilla versus Mighty Morphin Power Rangers number 2.
Ooh.
I am so excited about this. I wasn't I I am I just got this as like a, hey, let's just see what this is. And the
Yeah,
first issue was fantastic. So I'm really excited to check this out. I have no idea what's happening, but damn, they just went balls to the wall in issue number 1 and just went for it. And I was very excited about that. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm excited to see what those darn Power Rangers get up to. Next is Newborn number 6 from one of my favorite writers and artists, Chip Zdarsky and Jacob Phillips. Yeah, just going to continue the story of a lawyer not a lawyer, a PI for the mob. This is the second issue in the story arc, and at the beginning of the story arc, he had faked going to jail to get information from somebody and had just been released from jail with the information. So I'm very excited to see where it goes. I just love the concept. They're really dragging their feet with kind of showing where like hinting at the major arc, at least from my understanding. But yeah, I trust Chip Zdarsky as a writer to have to land a plane well and to know how to tell a story, because I mean he spent so long setting up Daredevil and everything that kind of happened with him over the last couple of years. So yeah, I have nothing but faith in him. The next is a second issue of something that we had talked about on the podcast before that you were really excited about, and I don't know if you ever got a chance to pick it up, but it's that Ghost Cage comic, just called Ghost Cage
Yeah.
number 2. Did you ever get a chance to pick
I
this up?
haven't.
Or
I downloaded the preview of it on
okay,
Comixology.
yeah, but
So
the
I
art
need to
just
read that.
continues to look great. I need to go back and reread issue number 1 before I dive into this, because there was just so much happening. It was very much, like when you watch a music video and it's like has like a manga style. What's that called? What's the word I'm looking for? Not whatever it is, just like a Japanese animation style. It's always like a lot's happening and very rapidly. It's
Yeah.
very like what's the word? Manga? Not manga. Manga's the book. What's the cartoon? There's another word. You're leaving me to dry, bud.
Is it?
There's
I thought
another.
it was just anime.
That's it. Anime. Thank you. That's the word I
Didn't
was looking for.
didn't you already say it though?
I did, but then I was
Huh.
saying manga, and I know that the people
You
who
got.
know get
Oh,
a
I see. You got them. You okay? I see. Yes, manga
yeah.
is like the book. Anime is the show. Yeah.
Right. There we go. Because I know people get upset when you say one or the other. So I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But when I talked about that issue, I also talked about the first issue of this. It is the Robots versus Zombies. This is issue number 2. This is a variant cover. And
I
this
love
is a
that
thick
cover.
boy. Yeah, she's a big one. I don't know how many pages, but
Got some thick boys this week.
I sure do. Dude, I have so many comics and I don't even know like when I'm gonna get time to them. I need to just
Yeah.
yeah, just set out a day to just burn through all of them. But like look at this art, man.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
it's so good.
Wow.
So there's that one. Sorry that we're just kind of burning through these, but literally had like each over 7. So just kind of
Yeah.
a lot. But I only have like 2 more, I believe. And this is the one that you wanted to get but didn't get,
Yeah.
is the Fourth Man number 4. So
Yeah.
this is the last one in this series. I would imagine that next week we're going to be talking about this. At least I
Yeah.
will be.
So I actually have
Um,
my I have the first two up here. hanging
Nice.
out. I actually still haven't read them because I was kind of waiting for this one to come.
Yeah.
But my shop, again, going back to, when you're too late to put in the order, it comes much later.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which at that point, it's like, do you just spend the $5 to either have it shipped from like some online site, or do you buy the digital copy? What's it going to be? But at this point, I'm looking at, I might just wait till a trade paperback comes out, but buy the digital
Mm-hmm.
version. So
Right. Hey, whatever you're gonna do, either way, I'm probably gonna be talking about it. If just let me know how much you wanted to spoil it, but I will be reviewing it next week. And then the last
I'll
one
do
that I
it.
got on my list that I just read before we jumped on here is the Naughty List from Aftershock.
That's another
And
one I had.
right.
Yeah.
And this is a fantastic idea for a story. It's a fantastic premise. It was a fantastic read. That made it sound like I didn't enjoy it, but I really enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to I was kind of a little apprehensive because I'm like, why are you putting out a Christmas story in springtime? I definitely
Yeah.
feel like they could have waited for Christmas. It probably would have done a little bit better, or like fall. But like, I think the story itself is going to, um, is to carry it. So just to kind of quickly cover it, uh, it's about the origins of Santa Claus as, uh, as you know, this man becoming the legend that is Santa Claus. So it starts off with just this guy who gets married and has a kid, and he goes into town, and this is around the time of the plague, and he sees all these children suffering, and so to try, he wants to help the children, but he doesn't know how. And so one night he's walking home and he sees a star. And so he wishes upon the star and says, I want to be able to help these children. I want to, make it so that I can make their days a little bit brighter. And he wakes up the next morning with like uh, a a compulsive desire to make toys. And so
Huh.
he just starts whittling away at toys. And he he just it becomes everything that he does. He ends up losing his job and like all of this stuff because he's just it's funny too. So it's not just like this serious thing. Like he talks about the star and he's like, I hate the fucking star, and like there's cursing, and the
Yeah.
elves turn out to not be elves, but they're actually little people who were also rejected from town. And he was rejected because he becomes immortal, and
Oh.
he eventually outlives his wife. He outlives his daughter, and so he hires the elves or the little people to come and work for him, and then they fall into this like weird curse. And it was
Yeah.
like it's just so fascinating and an interesting look. And so like he talks about like how every time that something arose that like got in his way about either like not having enough help, then he found the elves, and then the reindeer, and he would go to sleep and his hand would be covered in blood and blisters, and he'd wake up and they'd be fine. So it's a super interesting origin
Huh.
take on Santa, but I haven't even got to what the whole story is about. It's called the Naughty List, and it's about somebody steals the naughty list and starts killing people because the naughty list reveals all their crimes. So he is to stop
Oh,
them from, committing killing bad people. So it's
that's
such a trip.
interesting.
Oh my
I
gosh,
want.
it's a lot of fun.
I want. Like, is it? Do you know how long is it? Is it ongoing? Is it
I don't know how
five
much it is.
issues?
I would
I would.
assume it's probably a mini series and probably only going to be like you know, um
I'm just wondering
six,
if
5 issues.
maybe it's gonna be like kind of in, because who wrote it? It's the
After
aftershock. Yeah.
Aftershocks putting it out, yeah, and it's by
Uh,
Pippa Bowling, Bowling. I've never heard Bowland,
yeah.
something like that. Um,
I'm just
but yeah, the
wondering if
art was
maybe they're
phenomenal.
gonna see it to the end of the year so that the final issue comes out the week of Christmas.
I mean, that would make sense realistically. I
Yeah.
mean, we're already in April, so
That would make it
6 more months,
8 issues, 9 issues.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
This doesn't seem like it's going to be that long
But
though.
if it's every other month on release, it could be 5 issues. So
Yeah, that would make more sense, I feel. But yeah, that's my pools for this week, man. I got a
nice.
chunk and heck of them. I gotta do something to figure out when I'm gonna read all these bad boys.
I know
Um,
it's a mighty list.
it
Both of us
was.
got this
It
week.
was like we had like 4 weeks in a row where there was just like nothing, and then out of nowhere it was just like, boom, here's all the
Yeah,
comics.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, do you want to start? You want to? How about you feel about reviewing some stuff?
Yeah, so since I didn't have anything last week, I dug into the apps and started burning through some stuff. But I had bought the comics themselves. So right up here, this is Deadly Foes of Spider-Man. I've flipped through the pages. I haven't completely read it. I got these off of eBay, off of that site you suggested, or that
Hmm.
seller that you had suggested, and yeah, so those were four of the ones that I could get. It looked interesting. It was four. They had all four issues. So I went for it, and so like it has to do. So this is the Sinister Syndicate, not like the Sinister Six. They're the Sinister Syndicate, and it's kind of made up of five kind of B-list villains of Spider-Man's, minus one maybe. But you got Beetle, Boomerang, Rhino, Hydro Man, and Speed Demon are all teaming up basically to do these bank heists. So they're the focus of these comics. They're the protagonists, the team of the Sinister Six or the Sinister Syndicate, and yeah, Spider-Man's the enemy. He's the antagonist of this one. So it's like it is an interesting perspective. It came out in 1991, but it didn't seem like it did too well when it first came
Okay.
out. Um, and you know this because last year I think they came out with the Superior Foes of
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
no, this was the Superior Foes of Spider-Maners. I was like getting excited because that's from like I think like the Marvel Now era. So that was like
Okay.
2014, 15. I'm
Yeah.
looking at
So
it on my wall. I'm like
yeah,
wagging my tail like a pup. That was a phenomenal story arc. Have you read that?
I haven't yet. But it apparently that series makes fun of this series kind of outright. One of the villains like makes
Ah,
fun of the Sinister Syndicate and how stupid of an idea it was or something like that. But it is enjoyable. It's super super colorful. There's
yeah.
just way too much dialogue.
Mm,
That's this trouble I'm having with it. It's just like the speech bubbles are just like massive. There's not like quick conversations. It's just like, but it is early 90s and there's still kind of like in the early 90s it seems like comics were still kind of playing on golden age. Like
mm-hmm.
we have to put as much information out as possible and make things very obvious with
Yeah.
words.
So, okay, so when did this come out?
In 1991.
There's a series right now that's out that's called like something incredibly similar, if not the same thing. That's what I thought you were going to be reviewing.
Oh no, this is the old one. So yeah, this is
Here,
this guy right here.
okay. Yeah, let me check. Let me look
Go
into
ahead, go
that.
ahead, go ahead and Google get into that.
But yeah,
Um,
keep talking about it while I look into this.
but yeah, so it also like the Shocker's in it as well, and he's kind of a part of the team. This is also the introduction of Layla Davis, who eventually becomes Boomerang. No, I think she becomes Beetle eventually. Um, and so yeah, that's like her introduction. But essentially, the whole story is just like the Beetle forged this alliance with the Kingpin in secret, and he recruited this sinister syndicate to do the dirty work for Kingpin. They all find out and get mad at Beetle, and I don't know. It's just I'm only halfway through, and it just so far it's been a lot.
Well, yeah, I'm sure, especially if it's like the 90s. I'm not able to find it. I'm gonna have to look into that. But or
Yeah.
maybe you can look into it while I'm reviewing something. But yeah, I would highly recommend the Superior Foes of Spider-Man because that team that you listed off is pretty much the exact same team that they
Mm-hmm.
use. So okay, so that makes a lot more sense to me that they're I need to go back and reread it. I don't know if there's a trade paperback, and I hope to God that if there is, it's cheap. And if it's from the Marvel Now era, it's not gonna you know what?
Yeah.
There's definitely not because I bought the entire series. I have all the issues of the Superior Foes of Spider-Man. I have them uh Yeah, and I would have bought the trade paperback maybe, but maybe I wanted the individual issues. I can't remember what I was thinking because they were literally like when I first started like getting back into like buying comics, they were one of the first ones I picked up because I love the
Yeah.
art so much. It's by a guy named Nick Spencer, I believe, who we've talked about before. He
Yeah.
he's he just finished up doing The Amazing Spider-Man. Um
Okay. Yeah, because
and
Amazing Spider-Man just restarted. Issue 1 came out this last week.
I did it restart all the way at number 1.
Yeah.
Damn, they were up like at 70 something. Like they were real high. I thought they were going to keep going. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's always weird to me when they like just decide like, oh, we're gonna restart and we're gonna change a few things around. But I mean, that's what Marvel's always done and why Marvel has always lasted for so long. So
yeah, well, I mean they haven't always done that. They had longer running stuff, but
Mhm.
yeah. Well, anyways, do you have anything more you want to say about that? I can jump onto the just one of my comics if you want to do that.
I would just say with Deadly Foes of Spider-Man, it's a fun if you're looking for something Spider-Man to read, where it's just kind of a different point of view. I think you'd enjoy it. It's pretty classic art, even just the lines and the penciling. It's all very kind of like golden age influence, it seems. But I am liking it for looking, but not so much the reading.
Mm, understandable.
And
Uh,
if you have Marvel Unlimited, you'll find it on there. So
yeah,
that's where I would recommend reading it. Is for
interesting.
yeah.
I'm gonna have to go back and try to figure out what I thought I was seeing. But yeah, so I want to talk about the secret history of the war on weed. I know I
Mm,
already showed it, but I actually
yeah.
should have tried to remember this
So
dude's name here.
I did read the preview of it
Did you? Okay.
when it came out because I was interested. That's one of the ones that they didn't have on my shelf at the shop when I went in. So I
Mm,
didn't get it, and then I was just like, I don't know if I want the digital copy or not. So I
no,
didn't get
I
it.
feel like you'd enjoy the physical copy more of this. But I wasn't even aware that this was a thing. And then I went in, I saw it, and I literally, it was like I manifested it into being because I didn't know it was out. It was 420 and secret. I'm a stoner, hence stoned and nerdy. But I was like real stone walking around the comic shop, and I was like, it's crazy that no one put out anything about weed. And I turned, and it was just sitting there, and then I just grabbed it, and I'm like, well, yeah, the universe just gave this to me, so I'm gonna read it. And funnily enough, it's by a comedian that I like. He's one of the writers, Brian Posehn, who played. He was in. He did the mocap for King Shark, and he was also in Peacemaker. Or
Okay.
yeah, I think that was him, Brian Posehn. Anyways, he also wrote on Deadpool, so he's a good writer, and it's also written with Gary Duggan, who I've never heard of before. The art is by Scott Koblish, the colorist is High Five, and the lettering is Clayton Cowles. And together they make a phenomenal team.
Oh, that's
This was a very enjoyable read. So it takes place in this it the opening page essentially says, the history of the war on drugs is a long and complicated one, and everything in this is fake besides the notion of the war on drugs. So like they don't
yeah.
even have a real president from the time. They have, they're just making up people. It is a superhero world. There's a bunch of superheroes. So something that I got out of it was something that I always love from comics is just diving into an already established superhero world and just
Yeah.
seeing that. So this guy essentially is like the Terminator on steroids. He's just like super patriotic American, except he's not a robot or time traveling. He's just like big hulking Arnold Schwarzenegger uh, stereotype archetype. Um, and the president at the time decides that they need a good boost in the polls, so they decide that they're going to take down marijuana. So they have this guy come in, and his plan is to destroy this um, hippie commune where they're growing weed. So he flies in, he kills a bunch of people, he burns up a bunch of the crops, and then but they capture him, and his punishment is that he has to smoke a crazy amount of weed. And So he smokes it and realizes like all the errors of his ways and decides to just commit to marijuana. So he stays on the farm, he starts helping to grow and just getting baked out of his mind and all of that stuff. But that's when the president realizes that it's failing. So she assembles a team of supervillains to go and get him, but they're all like just disposed of like super quick. Um, but I
Huh.
won't spoil really how it ends. I guess I will, but I mean, because it's kind of really important to how it ends. And I just thought I was gonna have like a silly time going into this, and that I wasn't really expecting anything potent or poignant to come from this. Um, but at the end, the main guy whose name
Yeah.
I'm skipping on at the moment, he uh turns himself into a the police or whatever and says, I'm guilty of killing people, I'm guilty of smoking marijuana, and then he goes to jail. And when he's in jail, he joins a group of people who are incarcerated for marijuana related crimes. And then that's where it gets set in present day. And they're seeing all these people that have spent, 30 years in jail or, whatever, these crazy long sentences while out in society. Marijuana has become, legal, very accepted, is making huge profits, yet people are still rotting in jail. And at the end here is a several websites. I just remembered this. Several websites where you can, check out and donate uh, to helping people who are incarcerated because of non-violent marijuana related crimes. And one of them is the Last Prisoner Project, who I have personally helped out before with a music project that I released called Town Drugs. All the proceeds
Oh
from that
yeah.
I just donated to that. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I would highly recommend checking this out, and I would also very highly recommend checking out the organizations that they recommended because, as someone who uses marijuana both medically and recreationally, I think it is appalling that people are still sitting in jail for something that people are making a lot of money off of right now. So that
Oh
needs to
yeah.
change before
That
anything
does need
else.
to change. Well,
Yeah.
especially
So,
now because
anyways,
it didn't the House just vote it federally legal?
it has to pass in the Senate. So the House voted yes, but the Senate needs to vote before it gets to be confirmed.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but
we'll
yeah,
we'll get
so
there.
we will get there. But yeah, I would just recommend it. It's like I said, I'm a big fan of one shots. So if you are too, I would recommend checking out the Secret War on the Secret History of the War on Weed. Probably
Yeah.
could have came up with a better title, Mr. Stoners, like Weed War, Secret Adventure Time, or something like
Yeah.
that. I don't know. I'm not writing comics, but you got another one you
Yeah.
want to talk about, buddy?
Yeah, man. So I've been digging into Gotham Central this week, which is right here over my shoulder. On the front of this
Nice.
cover, you got Mad Hatter, and so I initially picked up this series because I wanted to start looking into a Batman villain that I'm not familiar with. We talked about it like episodes ago about with you having was it Scarface? Yeah.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, I want to look into a different one. So Mad Hatter's who I picked, and this is the series that I fell upon. Not really knowing much about the series until I actually got it and started looking into it. And so really the whole thing, it's about 40 issues. It's a story focused on the Gotham City Police Department and the difficulties its officers have living and working in Gotham City, which is, the home of Batman and all of his foes. Um, there are two writers to this series, and the premise of how they wrote it was very, very fascinating. So Ed Brubaker, who you know from Pulp,
Yep.
and I know you have more, but like that, you introduced me to Pulp, which maybe it'd be fun to talk about that one sometime. But that is just a great classic, like pulp noir, like comic book, very inspired by just the original days. Um, Anyways, Ed Brubaker ended up with 21 of the 40 issues. Uh, and the other artist was Greg Rucka or Ruka, not entirely certain of his last name. He's also like a legendary guy probably even more like he might have a little bit more of like a name than Ed Brubaker does. Uh, but Ed was in charge of writing the Night Shift storylines, and Greg was in charge of the Day Shift storylines over this comic.
Wow, that's a
Um,
lot of fun.
yeah, Ed was not a part of the last 3 issues. He left the series after issue 36, I think. And so it was really more just Greg's um, thing to work with. But yeah, so Brubaker wrote this one over my shoulder though, and I absolutely loved it. It's just the story of basically there's this unsolved crime that kind of starts getting a little more attention. It's been 6 years since the crime happened, and it was a high school baseball team got killed with a pipe bomb. That turns out the Mad Hatter was the one who was behind it. Um, it was just really really fun, and it really got me into like, oh, I like this perspective of like this is Gotham City, but we're not getting a whole lot of like Batman. We're getting like the actual grunt work of the police and what they have to go
Mm-hmm.
through. And so I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm just going to start reading the whole series. So I went back and I started issue 1, and also Greg wrote what is probably known as the most famous story arc from this series. It was called Half a Life, and it had to do with Renee Montoya, who I mean, if
Okay.
you're a fan of Batman, you should know who Renee Montoya is. But she was living this double life, and she gets outed at the station and finds like her whole environment and her work life and personal life are just completely turned upside down. And the villain behind it's just another two-sided character, hence the name kind of Half a Life. Um, but it's an award-winning series. It won the Eisner Award, which is like for those that don't know, Eisner Awards in comic book worlds, it's like the Academy Awards for comic
Yeah.
books.
Holy shit.
So yeah, so for the arc Half a Life, very very good. I like loved it. I'm probably about a quarter of the way through the entire series, but I'm excited to get through the rest of it because it has just been like really fun, and like knowing the backing behind how they decided to write it, just yeah, just made it really exciting. So I recommend it if anybody wants to pick that up. Oh, and the other thing about it, we talked about trade paperbacks earlier, and
Mm-hmm.
um, so Gotham Central didn't actually do that well when it first came around.
Mm.
Other like the first like 9-10 issues were like really really well taken, but it kind of dwindled down after that, and sales were just like pittering. But it really actually found its life in trade paperback.
Okay.
So
Is
yeah,
that like people were so that's kind of like one of those movies that like comes out and doesn't do well at the like a cult classic,
yeah, it's
essentially.
like it's like a sleeper series essentially, or like
Mm.
sleeper movies. It's just they're movies people kind of slept on. They didn't go out and see it in theaters, and then it got kind of a cult following, and everybody started watching and reading it.
And I yeah, I mean that's I think it's so fascinating that when we started this podcast, we were both like, we don't really read DC, and we're like, why don't we read DC? And we're like looking around at modern stuff, and we're like, why don't we go back to before the new 52?
Yeah,
Because that's really like the Bat. I it comes back to my mind every once in a while, and I still never finished reading that ventriloquist arc, but I loved that world of Batman just for the one issue that I was in it. You know,
yeah,
I the most Batman that I've read of the new 52 was a little bit of um the new 52 Batman and the Justice League, and he's so dark and just so serious, which I get, but like he just I don't know, it's so hard to connect with somebody who's like that, like you know?
yeah, yeah,
And it's you can only really connect with him through sympathy,
yeah.
and a desire to do good, I guess. But we're not here to talk about Batman, the most successful comic book of all time. We're here to talk about another dark series that I reckon will put the Dark Knight trilogy to the test, my friend.
Let's hear it. What is it?
It is called Dark Beach, which I talked about, I
Oh
think, a
yeah,
couple weeks ago.
you did. Yeah,
I don't know if I reviewed it. Did I review it or did I just talk about it?
I think
I'm
you had gotten the issue and you were excited about reading it. I think
I
you had
think I might
already
have.
read it at that point,
I
but
think
I
I
don't
did.
think that you had like your analysis ready for it. So
No. Um, So I think I told you the premise. If not, just literally go back to the last issue. Maybe you were getting two of the same reviews. Who knows? You're getting two for the price of one. It's free, so maybe you'll get three for the price of one. If I come
yeah,
back next week and I'm like, Mark, I gotta tell you about this comic called Dark Beach, but I have it in a different format somehow. Because last week I read the digital version. This I had the physical, and then who knows what next week will be.
yeah,
But the premise is that Earth is it I thought it was drifting away, but it seems that they are rocketing away from the sun. And the reason being is that the sun is going to, eventually explode and you don't want to be there for that. It sounds like a bad time. So you go and find a relatively young sun and then you can, you spend a lot more time living there. We pick up there's this man, he's on the beach, dark beach, and he gets he has a police radio, but he himself is not a police. He's an independent photographer doing kind of just work for the police because society isn't really what it was.
yeah,
Everything has kind of changed. There seems to be uh they've mentioned the idea of Bermuda and Mayflower, and the main characters, those are both foreign words to them. They don't mean places or like a boat. They're kind of
yeah,
all like, huh, I wonder what that is. So and like the name of the town that they live in is like ridiculous. It's something, not New Beach, but the place that they're building is called like New Razafakafak, like something just ridiculous like that. So it's kind of implying to me that the society has kind of moved on past the one that you and I know. So maybe there's something has happened in the middle. But yeah, the story is just really following this independent police photographer who seems to have invested interest in this one particular crime that he how do you say that? Takes pictures of, which is just simply just a dead woman with a VR headset on. The reason I'm looking down is because the comics, that's the main guy, and then that's the lady wearing the VR headset,
huh,
and she's what they call like a sun worshiper or something like that, and they have places where you can go and talk about the old sun and like revel in the times of like what it was like in the old time and all that shit. Um, yeah, so it's a super fascinating world. I didn't even say who it was by, but it's by I'm just getting last names on the covers. Let me open it on up. It is Michael J. Ruzes Unger, who's the creator. Sebastian Perez is the artist. Color is Ray Jones. The design is Angelica Benny, and it is from Behemoth Comics. And this is like the second thing from Behemoth Comic that I've read recently, in the past month or so, that's been really good. So I'm gonna
yeah.
be
I've been
keeping
keeping
my eye
my
on
eye on
Behemoth.
Behemoth. Yeah.
Jinx.
I haven't I haven't actually. I don't think I've pulled anything from them quite yet. I might have one or two issues of something they put out but didn't continue with, but I've been keeping my eye on them from week to week and just seeing what's coming down the pipeline. So,
Nice.
um, well, I don't want to rush this too much, but I wanted to go over Last Flight Out since it wrapped up
Mm,
a couple weeks ago. Um,
yeah.
and I'll try to breeze over this, but sorry for maybe going over a little bit. But
No, go ahead.
yeah, so
As
Last
long
Flight
as
Out,
we're
that's right
done in
here.
like the next 15, we should be okay.
Yeah, we'll be all right.
All right.
All right, so Last Flight Out, I really really enjoyed this series. I will say, unfortunately, I kind of met the same demise as Cross to Bear for me, but not at the same extreme. It just like it didn't finish as good as like the beginning and middle parts were. Um, it
Endings
was
are hard.
just endings are really really hard. It's really hard to the Last Flight Out. That's really hard to land that. Gotcha.
The
So
greatest joke
let
ever
me tell
told.
the yeah. Let me tell you who these wonderful creators are because I really am a big fan of all of them now. I already have talked about Mark Guggenheim before. He's worked with some Star Wars comics, but he's also the person who's helming that new Han Solo and Chewbacca series. Um, so I'm pretty excited about that. He's mostly worked in Marvel. He's done a lot of X-Men, a lot of Wolverine and Amazing Spider-Man. And in the future, I'm looking forward to this. I may be looking forward to this, but just because I'm on a Moon Knight kick, and obviously a lot of people are because of the show. Moon Knight Black, White, and Blood is coming out, I think, next month. And there's been a Black, White, and Blood kind of like theme going on with Marvel the last year or two, maybe longer. I'm not really sure where it started, but they're kind of like I don't know. It seems like they're not. There maybe even like 3 issues to them each. I'm not sure. I want to look into it more, but I'm excited about it, and I think it is all just like black, white, and red coloring. Again, we'll find out once that comes up. But then for the artist, we had Eduardo Ferragato. This guy's got quite a list, and he really likes to just play around with the emotions of the characters and their expressions. And so, like in this series, you see a lot of like facial close-ups with really, really detailed like backgrounds, but like he's able to capture emotion in his drawing in the way that like you can feel what's going on in the words that are being said. Yeah, and so it's colored by the first issue is colored by Marcelo Costa. I'm not really sure what happened with him, but he fell off after the first issue, and Natalia Marquez took over. And I couldn't even tell the difference, to be honest. She must have a pretty similar like coloring style to him, but the art just popped overall throughout the whole series and really added to just kind of the overall vibe of which it's a clock's ticking series. Like there's 24 hours left until the last flight out. Like that's where it starts. And it's over 6 issues. You would assume that each issue is supposed to represent about 4 hours. That's not necessarily the case. But there's just a lot of really high tension in it. There's like this fractured father-daughter story going on, as well as like this fractured like mentor mentee relationship where also the mentee and the daughter are now together. And so it's just the dad and the mentor is this one person who's kind of on the rocks with his daughter and her boyfriend who used to be his like apprentice. The main character is like the smartest guy in the world. The earth has been rendered uninhabitable. And
would you say he's a John Cusack type?
Oh, totally. If this were made into a show, this would be a John Cusack role for sure.
That's funny.
But yeah, the whole thing though, it really is just this kind of like family fatherhood like ride. There's just a lot about reconciliation and forgiveness and just like kind of recognizing, like you don't get to choose who births you or who becomes your sibling, or you don't get to choose that stuff, and that doesn't guarantee a good relationship. But if you know that you're coming to the end of the relationship and there's just stuff you have to get out, this series does a really good job of like representing like his failures as like this father inventor. And then by the end of the series, the daughter is also just like, I wasn't good. I wasn't necessarily like the best daughter either. And so it didn't all just like fall on the dad, but like the last issue was just very cliche specifically in that. But again, the series overall, it was just like you can hear the clock ticking as you're like reading because there's just such an urgency to it. Again, like just the artwork, you just like I said, the artist gets so much out of the art that he puts on there, just so much expression. I don't know how to emphasize that enough. And then just the bottom line, it's just a good premise with a few troubled pieces in there. It's got a lot of tension and there's a bit of the cliche, but it was fun. So I recommend it. Even though the last issue kind of dwindled off. The first 5 issues were pretty much like average 8 out of 10. I would say the final issue is maybe a 6 or 7 out of 10. But yeah, it was a fun ride, that last flight out.
Nice. I'm pretty sure you talked about Last Flight Out on our first episode, because I remember you having that name fit in there so well.
Yeah. Well, I think that I think that's when issue 4 came out.
4.
Maybe.
Okay.
Because
really? Maybe.
There was a really
it's only
long
been...
Yeah, there was a really long gap between and I mentioned this before, and this is how I found it out. There was a really long gap in between issue 3 and issue 4, like a 3-month gap. Issue 4 came out in March, and that was the Dark Horse thing I was telling you about. Dark Horse like officially got bought out, and I may have actually noted that on here.
Right, yeah.
Let me see here. Yeah, in December of 2021, the Embracer Group, they launched its acquisition of Dark Horse, and the buyout completed in March 2022.
Wow.
Yeah, and issue 4 came out in March after a 3-month gap, because that's when the initiation of the Embracer Group started to acquire Dark Horse. So it seems like the production or publication was like halted.
Well, also, didn't they switch a colorist? So maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe they were just shy of colorist for a little bit.
But that was only between issue 1 and 2. And issue 1, 2, and 3 came out sequentially, and then there was this 3-month gap, and then 4, 5, and 6 came out.
Yeah, my theory got shot down. All right, buddy. Well, how do you, speaking of this landing a plane, you feel like landing this bad boy?
Yeah, man. This was a heavy week. There was a lot of weight. There's a lot of reading in our future.
There's a lot of extra baggage on this plane.
There's a lot of extra baggage. You know, we're
pay that extra
free nights in a hotel and an extra $500 to the person who decides to sit out, so we can make room on this plane. So with that, welcome to your destination of being at the end of the podcast. The current weather is... I'm just kidding. I'll stop there. But yeah, everybody that hung out with us, thank you, pals. Hanging out with your best pals, Mark and Monk. We will be here next week, and then we're gonna have a couple weeks off. But hey, keep pulling those comics, keep reading, and let us know if you have any questions, comments, even concerns. Really, I don't know. I've heard that people watch people streaming and then see like a weird mole on their face. Like, hey, you should get that checked out. So if you got any of those types of... Man, I really took that one off. I didn't land it.
And also just a big shout out and thank you to the IWEP Network for having us. And there's a tornado tag episode on their channel, as well as the IWEP Network. That's a wrestling podcast. I believe that's what's going live tonight. If not, just head over to the IWEP Network on Facebook and on YouTube. And I've
been following make sure that the Not Cool in High School podcast.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Jinx. All right, buddy. Well,
all right, man.
As we say here is at Poolbox Pals, we'll see you next week. Same pool time, same pool channel.
All right, everybody.
We did it. Mark, you need to get your own catchphrase. That's my catchphrase.
Well, you took it from me.
I don't think that's true.
Well, maybe.
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
We'll go back and check. Yeah. Okay.
Check the tape.
Check the tape.
Bye.
We'll go back.